Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today's guest is Dre Baldwin, a former professional basketball player, entrepreneur, and the creator of Work on Your Game philosophy. Dre is known for his direct, no excuse approach to mindset, discipline, and performance. Today, we'll be learning from his personal experiences and doing a deep dive into his book called Work on Your Game to uncover some key ideas. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So, Dre, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you on.
Sid, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. So, let's kick off. If you could give us a little more insights about yourself and your business so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more.
Quick 2-minute background. I come from the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now I'm based in Miami, Florida. Played sports all my youth growing up. Found my way to basketball around age 14. Didn't play high school until my last year in high school, my senior year. Didn't play much that one year. Walked on to play college basketball at the Division III level, which is a tier that doesn't usually produce pro players. Was able to kind of hustle my way into playing pro ball despite that, which began a nearly decade-long career playing professional basketball internationally. So that's from the USA, so it was mostly in Europe. And at the same time, I started publishing content to this new website called YouTube. That's where I started to build a brand and get my name known through basketball training content very early on in YouTube, around 2005. About 2010, I added talking about mindset along with the training stuff. That expanded my audience to non-athletes. People who didn't play ball started finding me that way, and people who played ball but eventually stopped playing, they kept following me because I had some value outside of just the sport-based stuff. Stopped playing basketball in 2015, turned this whole brand, which I was now calling Work on Your Game, into a business. And for the last 10 years, I've been running that. Our main focus these days, Sid, is helping people perform at a high level, do so consistently, and do so with unshakable authority. We call that the power of presence. So that's how we got here.
Amazing. I can't wait to deep dive on that book. So I read it like three, four times already, and people often skip the acknowledgement part. So I read your acknowledgement, and you said, everyone who has asked a question, offered an observation, or vented their challenges to me since 2005, everything is material. So what do you mean by when you say that everything is material?
Well, the first person I ever heard say that was my favorite author, a man by the name of Robert Greene. Are you familiar with him?
Yes, I have his book, Laws of Human Nature, next to me.
Mhm. Right. So my favorite of his is the 48 Laws of Power. And it was in an interview he was doing. It wasn't in one of his books that he said it. But the 48 Laws of Power, where it came from was he had experienced a lot of stuff professionally, just trying to find himself through the first nearly 40 years of his life. So when he wrote the 48 Laws, it was written not based on theory, but based on things that he had actually experienced in people playing power games. And he came to realize everything I experienced, even though it didn't seem like it was leading up to this book, because he wasn't planning on being a big time author, was that everything he'd experienced was material to move forward. So people were asking him just, what is your writing style? How do you come up with your material? Because he writes these really thick books.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that he said, is that everything I experience is material. And then he finds other references that check out. He used a lot of historical references if you read his stuff. So that's where I first heard it. And I realized I didn't start doing that because Robert Greene said it. Because by the time he said it, I was already 1,000 pieces of content in. Said, but when I heard it, it made perfect sense to me because that's exactly how I've always made my content. I get my ideas from observation, things that I either have experienced myself personally, and of course, if you keep living, you keep experiencing new things, but also things that I hear other people tell their experiences, questions that people ask me, comments that people make was not even a question, it's just a comment, or challenges that I see people having, and I can tell that they're not quite sure what the question is, but I can understand what the question is. Or just something that I experienced. And it can be something that seems very mundane. I just actually wrote an article that I didn't put out yet talking about how when you leave the house, your dogs know whether you're taking the dog with you or not taking the dog with you. And the whole point is that the dogs are noticing your energy. They're not listening to your words. That becomes content. And that matters in the lane of the kind of things that I talk about these days. So it could be something small like that. They could be something much bigger. Like, hey, here's what happened in the Super Bowl, and here's why this team won and that team lost, not based on the sport, but based on leadership or teamwork, or is everybody doing their job? So it can be anything. can become content depending on your angle.
So do you think that we can take all of these material, that anything happens to us, as a way of a positive fuel to propel us into a task rather than taking as a negativity as well?
Well, let me rephrase the question, because what you do is you take the material from the experience and you decide whether it's going to be positive or negative. So it doesn't really matter what happens, because anything that happens in life, Sid, is neutral. There's no such thing as a good thing or a bad thing. It's just things. Everything in life that happens is just neutral. And we decide through our framing and our interpretation, was that a good thing that it rained outside yesterday when you were planning on having a picnic? Or was it a bad thing that it was a beautiful sunny day when you want to have a picnic? You decide what that is. Now, how you end up using it or not using it is all based on your concept of transmutation. If you're familiar with Napoleon Hill, he wrote in the book Think and Grow Rich, also one of my favorites, called the Law of Success. He talks about transmutation. And transmutation is an interpretation or understanding of the law of conservation of energy, which most people don't know the title, but many people have heard the saying that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It merely changes forms and it moves from one object to another. So if you have let's say, using myself as an example, playing high school basketball, I only played 1 year, and the 1 year I played, I barely played. So I could take the disappointment or sadness or frustration or whatever you want to call it from that 1 year, and I could say, well, this is negative proof. It is confirmation negatively that I'm probably not going to make it as a basketball player. I could take that situation and frame it that way and decide from that point forward, I'm done with basketball. Had I done that, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I said that I'm going to take that situation, that same energy, if you want to call it that, and I decided to transmute that energy, because every emotion has energy within it. And energy can be used any way that you want to use it. Just decides on how you decide to alchemize the energy. So I can take the same energy that some people call frustration, disappointment, embarrassment, sadness, transmute it into positive action. And then that positive action creates a result that I deem to be positive. And then people can look back on and say, wow, you went from there to there. How'd you do it? It seems like this miraculous story, but really what it is the transmutation of taking one energy, turning it into a different energy based on my decision, on my discretion, and then turning that into an outcome that most people would look at and call a positive outcome. So that's just the alchemy of using energy.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's up depends on our perspective on how we want to take that energy and convert it into positive or
Exactly.
negative. Makes
That's
sense.
right.
And since you mentioned 48 Laws of Power, I have to ask you, like, which is your favorite law from that book, and what have you really applied to your own life and you've seen the results?
Chapter 28, interaction with boldness. And I got that before I even bought the book. Now, I got the book 48 Laws of Power probably maybe a year or so after it came out. The book came out in the late 90s. And I got that book from the bookstore back when that was the only way to get books. There was no Amazon. Amazon existed, but not the way we know it now. And there was no 2-day shipping. You had to literally go to a bookstore, walk around, look at books, and pick them up and pay for them. That's where I got the book, in the bookstore. Was not looking for it. I was just browsing the human psychology section. Now they branched that out into business development and personal growth. But back then it was just psychology. That's all that mindset
Yeah.
stuff was just called psychology. And I saw the spine of the book, 48 Laws of Power. That's interesting. And on the back of the book, anybody who's read it, or if you go to the bookstore and look at it, you see that he has all 48 chapters listed on the back of the book. So law number 1, never upset the master. Law number 2, and then he just goes down the line. And I noticed law number 28. I said, that's an interesting one. And it wasn't that me reading it, so that was the first time the idea had occurred to me. I had already used that law before, but I wasn't consciously thinking about the law. So when I saw it, I opened up the chapter 28, right there in the bookstore, and I started skimming the chapter. And I'm like, this guy's speaking my language. That's exactly what happens. That when you act boldly and you throw caution to the wind and you move as if you have somewhere to be and somewhere to go, other people sense your energy and they get out of your way. Not because they know who you are, not because you said anything. They can feel your energy and they either get out of your way or they get behind you, but nobody gets in front of you. And I had already experienced that in my life. So when he contextualized it and made it make sense in a way that you could be conscious of it and do it as a strategy, I said, this guy knows his stuff. And that's why I bought the book. And I've probably read that book 100 times over my lifetime from the time that I got it. So that's my favorite chapter.
Makes sense. And I see a book behind as well called Power Presence. So what's that difference to the psychological aspect that Robert Greene talks about power? And what do you talk about in Power Presence Protocol?
Well, Robert Greene's book is about how people use power in interpersonal interconnectivity of human communication. Power presence is in a similar vein, but I wasn't thinking about that 48 laws of power at all when I created power presence. The power
Yeah.
presence is all about it's about communication, but in a completely different way. Power presence is basically taking discipline and making it visual. Power presence is about the way that you carry yourself, and you can step into a space and you get recognized as the authority pre-verbally and non-verbally, meaning before you speak or even if you never speak. And anyone who's listening to this can think of a time where you saw a person somewhere and you didn't know who they were. You did not talk to them. They didn't talk to you, but you could tell that they were quote unquote somebody. And why is that? It's because of their energy, is their presence. The way that they carried themselves told you that that person was somebody, even if you never found out who exactly they were. You can tell that by the way people carry themselves. That can be in a business setting, that can be at the mall, it can be at the gym, it can be at the dog park. You can just tell by the way people carry their energy. And our energy is the first thing that other people feel about us. That's what we call presence. That's the first thing that people notice about you before you speak. And the words, what I often explain to people, especially highly intellectual people, people who are highly educated people, people who think they're really smart, people who are very learned, people who are well read, we tend to overvalue verbiage. We overvalue words because words are our ability to use words is proof of our intellect and proof of how smart we are. The challenge with it is not that words don't matter. They do matter, but people read your energy more than they read your words. So if you have all the right words, but your energy is off, nobody believes you. And if your words are not that great, but your energy is on point, people will follow you. So if you've ever seen someone say some things that didn't quite add up and didn't quite make sense, but they had a certain level of certainty and authority behind their words, people were eating it up as if what they were saying was gospel, even though it didn't make any sense. While at the same time, a person who has all the right words, but they're not quite certain, their confidence is off, and just something about the way they're presenting themselves is not quite, is something's not right about it. People usually can't explain what is missing. They can't say something's off about this person. They may feel that, but they can't explain what it is. And that causes them to not trust you, not listen to you. If you're selling, they won't buy from you. If you're trying to persuade, they're not persuaded, even though everything you said was exactly 100% correct. So it's the energy that people have to get back to. And the world that we're in now, it's so noisy and we are so distracted mentally that we can't develop the presence or we can't get back to presence, excuse me, because presence is not something that's developed. Presence is something that is revealed when all the noise is stripped away. You take all the extra away that we have inundated ourselves with, so all that's left is presence, the signal. A simple example of this is look at humans and how we communicate and look at animals and how they communicate. What's the difference? We have the ability to speak. We have the ability to narrate. We can rationalize. We can think about the past. We can think about the future. Animals can't do any of that. All they can do is go off the signal that they feel right now in the moment. They don't have a past. They don't have a future. They only have right now, and they can't make up stories about what they see and make it seem like it's something that is not. They only go off of what actually is. And humans can do it too. We just have to strip away all the noise that gets in our way of reading that signal.
Interesting. And I want to know more about energy. For example, I see someone in an event and I know that this person is a high energy person. So how can someone have high energy? Does it depend on having a self-image? Because I think you mentioned somewhere in a book or in a podcast that what you see in the mirror determines the life you live. So does the energy depend on the how we see ourselves?
Well, let me uh, correct your question here because it's not high energy, it's high signal. Signal and energy are a little bit different because high energy, the way I colloquially, when we say high energy, we usually mean somebody who's more hyper excited, motivational speaker on the stage type of person. Yes, that's not what I mean when we say high. I'm talking the signal. High signal means your signal is very clear. It's not diffused, meaning you're not trying to be more than one thing at the same time, and your signal is so strong that everybody can feel it, even if you're not doing anything. For example, if you go to a nice museum or something, and there's a security guard standing over in the corner, he has a gun on each hip and he's standing there at attention watching everybody. He's not talking to anyone. He's not smiling at anyone. Everyone notices the security guard, but he's not engaging at all. That's a high signal that he's giving off. Now, what's the signal? Signal is I'm here that just in case anybody does anything you're not supposed to do, I'm going to respond. Now, he's not saying that. There's no sign on his head that says that's what he's going to do. but he's giving off a very strong signal. Does that make sense? Okay. The same way that if you go to the zoo and you see a lion, I always tell people this, that if you didn't know what a lion was, but you saw one, you would immediately understand the energy coming from the lion. Not because it's telling you what it's going to do, but because you can feel its energy. Now, we know what it can do. Most of us have never witnessed a lion hunt and kill something, but we know it's capable of. You can feel that. That's what I mean. It's a signal. When your signal is strong, other people feel that and they respond to it.
Makes sense. That's why you got the lion picture on your book, right?
I wasn't thinking about that, but that's correct. Yeah.
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 Perfect. So coming back to your book called Work on Your Game, right? And the
Mhm.
chapter 1 is cardio for the mind. And because it makes sense, because everything success starts with what is in between years, right? And you say this, that there were too many players out there with even more talent than I had. Though I was blessed with God given ability, I made up in mental game what I lacked in talent. Well, tell me more. What do you mean by when you say you made it up in mental game?
Well, to become a professional athlete, there's a Mendoza line, a baseline of talent that you have to be eligible to get into the space of professional sports, any sport. So let's just say to get in and be eligible to compete for a job, you have to be in the top, let's say 10% of talent in the world at that game. Of that top 10% who is left, 80% of those are never going to make it. 2% make it. So even the ones who are good enough, 80% of them don't get in. I was good enough to be in the 10% to had a chance. Now, if the game only came down to who are the most talented, I would not have made it because I wasn't in the top 2% in talent. I was in the top 10%, not top 2%. So the reason I was able to make it is because some of the people in that 10% that remained didn't have the discipline, the structure, the resilience, the consistency to follow it all the way through to make it to the professional level. Because at the professional level of what you do, everybody has some talent. And there are some people who are so talented that even if they don't try that hard, they can at least get in for a little bit. But in the long run, the people who are the most disciplined, structured, organized, and they have some level of talent, those are the ones who make it. So you can't have no talent and work hard. That's not going to be enough because you're going to get beat by somebody better than you. If you have talent and don't work hard, once you get into that final 10%, you're going to get beat. So this is the reason why high school and collegiate players can be really talented, not work hard, but still be successful. But at the pro level, that doesn't cut it. And anything in the sports is the most clear because it's so obvious and we have a clear scoreboard. In the business world, is the same thing, but it's a little bit trickier in business because business is highly subjective. Sports is more objective.
Yeah.
So for me, when I talk about the mental game making up for it, it's that discipline, showing up consistently and doing the work. And I knew a lot of players in my youth, high school, college who were more talented than me, but they weren't as disciplined as me. So when their talent advantages got smaller and smaller as we went up levels and their lack of discipline started to hurt them in a negative way, then people like me are able to surpass them. But again, if I didn't have the baseline level of talent, it wouldn't matter how hard I worked. And this is one of the things that in the sports world, specifically youth sports culture, a lot of coaches, mentors, teachers, parents want to tell their kids that if you just work hard, you can beat out anybody. That's not true. If you're not talented enough, you're not beating out somebody who is that much more talented than you. You have to get in the right vehicle, find the right sport. I played a lot of sports. Sid. I played a little bit of football. Never seriously played football, American football. A little bit of baseball. Wasn't talented at baseball. No matter how hard I worked at baseball, I was not going to make it as a baseball player. That was the wrong vehicle. I had to get in the right vehicle in terms of sports, and that happened to be basketball. Maybe my vehicle, let's say my vehicle wasn't sports at all. Right? If my vehicle wasn't sports, it would be on me to realize, okay, my vehicle is not sports. Maybe I like sports, but I'm not going to be a player. Maybe I can be an agent. Maybe I can be a coach. Maybe I can be an analyst. Maybe I can write about it. Maybe I need to leave sports alone and go get on the computer and learn code. You have to find your vehicle. And everyone, the good news is for everyone listening to this, there is a vehicle for everybody. The challenge for a lot of people is that they spend way too much time trying to ride in a vehicle that's not for them. I found the right vehicle. I had the talent. Then I applied the discipline, the mental toughness, the consistency to it. And that's how it ended up being a successful story.
And how can someone find their right vehicle?
That's a great question. Well, we talked about Robert Greene. He wrote a book called Mastery, and he gives a good in-depth rundown of it, but I'll give you a shortened version. My version of how to figure it out is number one, you have to try a lot of things out. And when you try a lot of things out, a couple things are going to happen. First of all, you'll get a lot of life experience, which I find that the younger generation coming up now, let's say college age and younger, are not getting as rich life experience in their early years before they turn 30 than we had in our generation, simply because they are experiencing a lot of life through a device. And that's not real
Yeah.
experience as far as I'm concerned. Real experience is when you have to actually physically be there. Both of your feet had to be on the ground in a space and you live it. Doesn't matter how it turns out, but you have to actually do it. So getting experience, trying a whole lot of different things out. And a lot of those things you try out are not really going to be the space for you, but you'll learn. Okay, here's what works, here's what doesn't. Here's a little piece from this that is useful. And when I played baseball, I was pretty good at running around the bases, but I wasn't good at that good at hitting or catching or throwing. Okay, so what can I do that involves running? Okay, basketball has running. All right, maybe I can take that piece and that can tell me something that can work somewhere else. So it's finding out what's the little piece that works. I got on computers. I like being on computers. I'm kind of a closet computer geek, Sid. Nobody knows that. I'm a little bit of a computer geek, but at the same time, I like interacting with human beings. I like to interface with people. So I knew I wasn't going to become a graphic designer or a computer coder, because that's a lot of isolated work where you're looking at a screen, but you're not really talking to people. I need to use my skill of engaging with people while at the same time maybe using the internet, while at the same time using my communication skill. I learned these things by doing different things. When I was in elementary school, I did the drama club, what we call drama club, which is like acting, like theater stuff. And this is not some high level stuff. This is like Julius Caesar. I was one called The Salt and the Sea. I did two plays, one in second grade, one in third grade. One thing I learned that I was pretty good at memorizing the lines and reciting them back on stage. I was pretty good at that. I didn't have stage fright getting on the stage in front of the rest of the elementary school and delivering my lines. So I learned I can be on the stage when I'm prepared and I can communicate and I can get my voice out there and I know how to kind of say the lines in a way that they're supposed to be felt. And all of those things, and I can give you 1,000 examples, but I'll just give you
Yeah.
those few. Those all come together in this gumbo that now we're here. Now, the good thing also for me is that I told you I'm a little bit of a computer geek. The internet came around. Now, on the internet, you have a lot more options as to what you can do with that skill set as
Yeah.
opposed to 30 years ago. Had I been, let's say my parents' age, I may not have had the same opportunity. So I don't even remember what your question was, but hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, no, makes sense about talent and working hard. But I'm just thinking about all the basketball players like Michael Jordan, or
Mhm.
like thinking about Tom Brady, who was like the legendary Super Bowl athletes. When they started out, right, what I remember is that they weren't talented at all and they were struggling when they started out. So let's say Tom Brady, for example, he was skinny, he couldn't run quick. And talk about Michael Jordan, he didn't get selected in the basketball team. He was short enough, he was thin when he was starting out. So if they would have given up at that time thinking, okay, I'm not talented, so they would have been the great. So was a healthy balance between knowing that you can push through this adversity through hard work, even if you don't have talent, and you can build that, and when to know that, okay, I'm not talented in this one, I need to try something new and focus on it.
It's an interesting question. So Tom
Yeah.
Brady and Michael Jordan were both in the 10%. No, they both had enough talent. And Tom Brady did get drafted to the NFL. So you have to have some talent to get chosen. All right. Michael Jordan did play Division I college ball. He was player of the year in college. So people knew he was good. He was number 3 pick in the draft. Now, when it comes to the balance of how much to try something before you give up, is that what you're asking? It's a few things. First of all, there's no perfect answer to the question, because there are people out there who, with my level of experience, let's say through my junior year of high school, quit, and it was the right decision because they were not going anywhere in basketball. And there are other people like me who played and finally made the team their senior year too, and then they try to go play in college and they realize, okay, this ain't going to happen. All right, so even though I kept going and it became this hero's journey because I made it, there are other people who tried to do the same thing. They didn't make it. And I used to hear from them because I told you I made basketball content online for 10 years. So I would hear from these players all the time. And a lot of them didn't make it, but they were inspired by the fact that I did, was told them that it's possible. Possible doesn't mean it's guaranteed for everybody. And the thing is, when you're going to give up on something, I tell people there's a couple things you want to look for. Number one, do you still see the vision in your mind that this can be a success? Do you see a vision in your head that this can work out despite the fact that you just failed yesterday? If you can still see that, that means you can keep going. If the vision is gone, if the lights are out in your mind, then it's time to walk away. Secondly, when you have a rough day, a challenging day, are you still looking forward to coming back the next day, practicing and improving on the weaknesses that got exposed? All right. Do you still see that? Right. And third, are you willing to do the quiet work so that you can get seen in the light? That
Oh,
resilience, that process. And a big thing about me, Sid, and we're kind of uncovering this, is that I'm huge on process. I don't operate off state. I don't operate off emotion. I don't operate off feelings. Not that I don't have them. I operate off process, meaning how I feel is irrelevant to the process that must be executed. I've always been like that. And my making it as an athlete, despite the setbacks, happened because I continued to work on my game, despite the fact that there were times that nothing was working. So the disappointment that I was feeling didn't stop me from coming back to the court and practicing more. And that's a big part of it too. When people have that, they have that process ingrained in them, whether you learned it from your parents, you learned it in school, you learned it you had a job when you were a kid, whatever it is, your parents ran a business and you saw them go to work every day. But learning that process is a very important thing because being process driven, Sid, compounds over time, which means over time, a person who's driven by process from their 20s to their 30s and beyond, they get better and better and better, even though it's not always going up. Over time, they always get better. It's like a stock that goes up. Doesn't mean every day it goes up. Sometimes it drops, but eventually it comes back up because they're following a process. And when you continually stack the work, it compounds. It's like compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, whoever said that. And on the other hand, though, people who operate off feelings, well, the problem with operating off feelings is that they don't show up every day. So you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. And that's the same thing with you. Well, you're not reliable. You're not going to get compounding because you're not consistent. And over time, that lack of consistency starts to cost you. So as the person who is operating off of process goes up over time, the person who's operating off feeling, they go down over time. So like one is going up the escalator, the other one's going down.
super clear and like clearly explain in like those 3 steps on how to know if you really want to succeed in this particular thing or sports that you want to do. I want to come back. I'm just talking to you like different topics, but I really want to come back to the work on your game chapter number 1, and you share this really powerful story about the victory of the trumpet of the victory by by Alexander the Great. So do you mind just elaborating that story a bit, and I'll ask you a few questions on that.
Yeah, so Alexander the Great was one of the great generals known of all time. Anybody who knows anything about history, and he was called Alexander the Great because he won most of the time. But one particular battle, his side was losing, and while his side is losing, he sends a signal to the rear of his camp to his. They had a trumpet person whose job was just to play certain trumpets, which were the signal to the army as to what to do next. So he sends the signal to play the trumpet of retreat because they needed to retreat that day. Even though Alexander was a great general, he knew when to take the loss. Like, let's just cut our losses and get out of here. So he sends the signal for the trumpet, but the trumpet doesn't play. Sends the signal again. Again, it doesn't play. A third time, the trumpet doesn't play. Alexander would fight amongst his soldiers. So he goes to the back of the camp to summon the trumpet boy and find out why his orders are being defied. And the trumpet boy tells him, hey, I didn't bring the trumpet of retreat because I didn't think we would need it because we usually win all of our battles. So I stopped bringing the trumpet of retreat because I thought all we would need is a trumpet of victory because that's the only one I ever use anyway. So Alexander had to figure out what to do here because his team is still losing. So he tells the trumpet boy, okay, well, if you only brought that one trumpet, just play that one. And the trumpet boy plays the trumpet of victory. And even though his army had been losing, when the soldiers heard the trumpet of victory, they took it as a signal that, okay, we're winning and we're about to finish these guys off. So let's just finish them off. Because you got to understand, the soldier to a man doesn't know the big picture. They only know what's in front of them. They're just trying to not die. So when they hear the trumpet of victory, they're thinking, okay, our whole team is winning. So all we had to do is give one last push and we'll finish this off. So when they heard that trumpet, that's what they did. They were losing, but they ended up winning because each guy was conditioned to just finish it off when you hear that sound. And the whole point there is about mental conditioning. And as human beings, we are triggered by certain things, certain outside stimuli trigger us to respond a certain way. So the way that anyone who's listening, ever known a person who, no matter what is happening, they always find a way to get annoyed or angry. Or if you know a person, no matter what's happening, even if it's challenging, they always find a way to find the silver lining and be positive. Or a person anyone who's listening individually. Anytime you come up with a new idea, the first thing you think of is all the ways why or how it might not work, or how it might fail, or why you don't need to do it right now. You procrastinate, you hesitate, you second guess yourself. These are all similar to the trumpet of victory or the trumpet of retreat for Alexander. Now, back then, those guys didn't have as many options as we have mentally these days. We have a million different trumpets that can signal to us to do a million different things. The question for us is, what are we conditioned for? This is not just what we can do, is what are you conditioned for? Because 85% of how human beings think and behave, Sid, is based on habits, is not based on conscious choice. We don't constantly decide what to do most of the time. 85% of the time, we just react. And our conditioning determines what we do. Good news is you can condition yourself for pretty much anything. The bad news is, Sid, that most people are not aware of this concept. Therefore, they are randomly conditioned by whatever environment they happen to be in. So whatever you're doing, whatever you listen to, whatever you're scrolling on your phone, whatever you are engaged with, whoever you grew up around, whatever environment you're in, you're conditioned by that. And if you happen to be from a good environment, good, you're lucky. You happen to be from a bad environment that's conditioning you poorly, you won't even understand why, but you are going to react in that way because that's what you were taught. But when people become aware of this, and this is the reason why it was the first chapter of the book, when you become aware of the concept of conditioning yourself, you can condition your subconscious, because this is all about the subconscious mind. You can condition your subconscious mind for anything you want. You just have to have the repetition, immerse yourself in a certain way, and emotionalize it in any way. You can do any one of those three or all three ideally, and you can change your subconscious programming for anything.
Super clear. And when I read this chapter, Dre, it was life changing, because when I'm at work, right, and I see if I've got 2 hours remaining, I turn my Teams on Do Not Disturb as a way of a signal for me to give my all in that 2 hours and just do the deep work I can. So that really helped me instantly when I read it, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be the same for our listeners.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks. And let's say, for example, Alexander the Great was there and he was losing. He could see the battle losing, and then he could easily spiral down with negative thoughts, right? And which you call as ants, as automatic negative thoughts. So my question to you is, like, what are some of the ants that you had to exterminate in your own life?
Good question. I'm not sure anybody's ever asked me that one. Some of the ants I had to exterminate in my own life. It was in sports, first of all, just telling myself, hey, you didn't make the team. You haven't made any teams at the local park. You haven't played on your high school team. You don't have any real progress going here in your basketball process. Why even keep doing this work? This is going to turn into anything that matters. And I had to stop the automatic negative thoughts of questioning myself. What's the point of doing all this work? Because you don't see any other kids in the neighborhood doing this work. You don't see anybody at your high school doing this work yet. A lot of them have more success than you have. So who are you to keep doing this work? For what reason? That's an automatic negative thought, even if it's just a question, because a negatively framed question. So I had to stop myself from asking that question. Another thing is, and again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative statement to yourself. It can be a question that can lead to a negative answer depending on how you frame it, because the quality of the questions determine the quality of the answers. So in business, I could have easily just kept serving the basketball audience. I decided that I wanted to move on and do things outside of basketball. I knew that before I stopped playing, but I could have easily kept doing that because I had a big audience, a lot of basketball players watching me. There are a lot of people coming to YouTube to not only publish, but also view basketball. And I had a stronghold in that space, but I didn't want to stay in that space. I didn't want to just be the basketball guy, because I knew I had a lot of things said that I could share with the world that were bigger than basketball. I wanted to go outside of that, but I had the automatic negative thought of, why throw away this audience? Why throw away this opportunity? Why walk away from this where you're already established, you're already known, and walk into something where nobody knows you? You have nothing established. You have no platform. You have no resume. You haven't proven anything. Why do that? That's an automatic negative thought that I had to work against and decide, hey, I'm going into this space. I will establish myself. I did it in basketball. I can do it in this space. And I already knew that there are people out there who don't play basketball who value what I was saying. So those are just two that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe I'll think of another one before we're done, but those are the first two.
I have another one. So in
Okay.
2004, right, when you were talking to your parents that you want to be a professional basketball player, but they said, are you crazy? Are you nuts? But then you started crying at that time. So how did you overcome that experience?
Transmutation. So in that situation, there wasn't an automatic negative thought. There was commentary coming from my parents who were questioning my stated direction that I was going to go play pro sports, but I didn't even have anything to do to actually make it happen. It was just an idea that I had, or quote unquote a decision, but there was nothing for me to actually tangibly do to make it happen. So when they challenged it, they were holding up a mirror to me and showing me like, hey, you don't have anything real or tangible behind this. And it upset me not that they said it, it upset me that it was true. So I took the disappointment and the anger, the disappointment, the embarrassment, the sadness, the frustration of that reality, and pulled the I pulled the energy out of that emotion, because there's a lot of energy in those emotions. I pulled the energy out of that emotion and I transmuted that into the energy that I transmuted that in energy that I use to go to the gym, work on my game, start marketing myself, getting my name out there, getting my first agent, going to some exposure camps, which are like job fairs for athletes. And that's how I was able to make that opportunity happen. So I took that energy and I applied it to something that was going to change the reality.
Makes sense. You basically channel that energy in the right direction.
Well, in a direction that I thought would end up being right. Now, had I not make it, it wouldn't be the right direction. So you gotta end the story properly for it to be the right direction.
Makes sense. But it was right because that's why you're on the podcast today.
Yes, exactly. So what I tell people, Sid, is that you don't know if the decision that you made yesterday is the right decision until we get to the end of the story. That's the tricky part about life, is that you have to put yourself out there sometimes and burn the bridge behind you. And we won't know if you ended up right or wrong until 10 years from now. So that's the part that everyone has to accept.
100%. And you said this beautiful quote, by the way. You said, like, difference being a visionary leader and being a delusional fool just depends on how the story ends.
That's right.
Correct.
Exactly.
Perfect. So, do you think like negative thoughts feel more believable than the positive one, or it really depends on the person?
Mm. I think negative thoughts are more numerous and people respond more strongly to negative thoughts because negative thoughts are based in our quote unquote lizard brain, which is the brain that's designed to keep us alive and keep us safe. Negative thoughts come from back in the days, the quote unquote caveman days, where a negative inkling was don't eat those berries because they might be poisonous. Watch out for that rival tribe over there because they might kill us. Watch out for that saber-tooth tiger over there, it might eat you. So even though we don't live in a world these days where we are inherently in danger, life or death danger every day, we still have that system within us. That's where the negative thoughts come from. They're designed to keep us safe and alive. But these days, we have taken that same energy of being safe and alive, and that energy has nowhere to go. So people channel it into things that are basically trivial, but we treat them as if they mean everything. Somebody left a negative comment on my Facebook page, or are they going to like the color of my shoes? Or what's somebody saying bad about me in the office next door? Those are not life or death things. But when people have this high level of anxiety, they don't have a settled nervous system, they treat these things as if they're way more important than they are. So that's what happens. And what was the question again? Let me make sure I'm answering it.
So, the question was, do you think negative thoughts feel more believable than the
Oh,
positive ones?
yes. And they do feel more believable to people because a negative thought can save your life, theoretically. Positive thoughts don't really save your life. Positive thoughts can move you forward, but those positive thoughts can only have their effect and get through to you when your nervous system is settled enough that the negative thoughts are not throwing you off course and causing you to kind of lose your head and run around like, Chicken Little, the sky is falling.
Interesting. And then, what's your practical way that someone can talk back to their automatic negative thoughts?
Great question. Is you have to cancel them out. You have to cancel out a negative thought with 2 positive thoughts, and ideally 10 positive thoughts, because the effect of a negative thought, I've heard it said that it's worth 17 positive thoughts. But I tell people to start with at least 2, and then you can work your way up to 5 and 10. But negative thoughts, one negative thought can outdo 10 positive thoughts, because again, negative thoughts are based on how to be safe and alive, not to be in danger or to lose your life. There's nothing in a positive thought that's going to bring you to life. You're already alive. So they don't have the same weight because of what they are designed for.
Interesting. So, for example, if I'm going to speak, going for a public speaking competition, let's say, and I'm getting these negative thoughts, oh, I might stop, I might forget my lines. And then I start saying these positive affirmations to myself. So what really happens? Like, do you know, like mentally, how does it help us stop that negative? What happens?
Yes. So that work is, we call that doing your homework. So this is not something you're going to be thinking about the day of the competition or right before you walk on the stage. I used to tell athletes this because athletes just ask me, Dre, what am I supposed to be thinking about when I get into the game? And the answer was nothing. You shouldn't be thinking at all. It, uh, when you get into the game, the thinking time's over. Thinking was what you were doing in practice and in training. All right, you already did that. So by the time you get to the game in game day, or if you're speaking day, I give keynote speeches. By the time I'm putting my suit on to go to the stage, I've already done all the thinking. I've already done all the training. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I've already prepared my speech. Now it's just my brain is like white noise. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just getting myself into that zone, or some people call the flow state, whatever you want to call it. Get into that mode where the thinking completely turns off. Now is just time to perform because the work has already been done. Doing your homework is the work that you do before the performance, so that by the time the performance comes around, the victory has already been secured by the work you did back then. All the performance is a public verification of the work that you already did. That's how it works.
So it's basically like self-talk, correct?
No, there's no talk. No,
No,
so
like
you
in the trainings, for example.
in the trainings, no, and not even that. So in the trainings, you're just doing the work to get yourself ready. So let's just use a tangible example. When I'm playing basketball, I'm doing the training for how I'm shooting this jump shot, how I'm doing these moves, how I grab these rebounds, et cetera, or how the team practices running the plays. We tangibly and physically are doing the work and practicing. We're working on the execution of how we're going to do our stuff. When we get into the game, there's nothing to think about because we have done it so often that it's become muscle memory. You just do it without thinking. If I'm going to give a keynote speech, I've already practiced my speech 1,000 times. I already know exactly what I'm going to say. Even if I'm giving a speech I've given before, I still practice it a bunch of times before the next time I give it. So by the time I get to the stage, I already know what I'm going to say. I already know how I'm going to handle it. I know when people are going to laugh. I know when I'm going to pause. I know if there's any little nuggets that are about the particular organization or this event specifically, I'm going to add in that I normally don't say. I already know what I'm going to do before I get on the stage. So I don't have to self-talk. Self-talk is, you mean like in the form of reassuring yourself that you're okay before the
Yeah,
situation occurs.
I feel
Yeah.
confident, I'm ready, all of that.
Right. So I'm glad you brought up that word confidence. This confidence is one of the 4 pillars of where the mindset part of working on your game comes from. When you are structured and you follow a structure, that's the practice, that's the preparation, homework that you do before the situation. When you follow a structure consistently, the byproduct of following a structure is discipline. And this is what a lot of people get wrong. And why a lot of people get confidence wrong is they don't understand this process. So when you follow a structure consistently, you get discipline as a byproduct. And the reason why that matters, Sid, is because a lot of people think discipline is some type of internal, inherent, personal attribute. It is not. Discipline is a result of following structure. You follow structure all the time, you're disciplined, or you look disciplined to the outside world. You may even feel disciplined. When you are disciplined consistently, that means you are always doing the work consistently, the same things, the same way every time. The byproduct of that discipline is that you are confident at the thing that you've been doing. So if you consistently practice shooting your free throws with a structure, you get disciplined at doing it. You feel confident that you can make the free throw. You can feel confident you can give the speech or make the sales presentation or close the deal, whatever it is. When you are confident, then performance is not nerve wracking, it's not anxiety inducing. Performance is actually fun. You look forward to the performance. You might still feel a little bit of butterflies in your stomach or that kind of feeling that I used to get before I played in basketball games. It wasn't always happiness. It was, you feel a little bit of butterflies, as they say, butterflies in your stomach. But the butterflies in your stomach don't mean that you're scared or nervous. It means you know you're about to do something that matters. And once you start doing it, your muscle memory takes over because you already did the work. You already prepared for it. It's just your subconscious realizes, okay, now it's time for everybody to see this work. But you've already prepared for all of that. Now, when you're confident, that leads to the performance. When you perform in a way that you believe in what you're doing and you know you've done the work, people can feel that confidence in watching you perform. And remember what I said earlier, people read your energy. They're not reading what you say. They're not reading exactly what you're doing. They're reading how you do it. How you do it and the energy around your behavior matters more than the actual behavior or the words themselves. And that performance, when it's done properly, it leads to results. You win the game, you give a good speech, you close the deal. You produce the results that you're supposed to produce. Well, what do you get? Well, you win the game, you get trophies, you get another opportunity. Somebody else wants to do business with you. Somebody else wants you to come speak at their event. We call those rewards. And that's the process. You follow the structure, you get discipline. You're disciplined, you afford yourself confidence. When you're confident, you perform. You perform at a high level, you get results, you produce results, you get whatever rewards you want, and then you just repeat the cycle and do it over and over again. So to answer your question, the self-talk can be part of your training, your homework. If you want to discipline yourself by self-talking, fine, do whatever works for you. But I tell people, I think I mentioned this in Work on Your Game in the book, that this is a results-based business. You're judged on your outcomes. In life, you are judged on your outcomes. So whatever you need to do in your process to produce the outcome, do it. And nobody's going to criticize you for your process if you're producing results. Now, if you're not producing results, nobody cares about your process because you don't get the result. That's just the way it works.
Super clear, Dre. Thank you for explaining that. And let's switch gears now. I want to talk about one of my favorite chapters in the book, Work on Your Game, that is being a go-getter. Right?
Yes.
So my question is, what does being a go-getter really mean beyond just working hard?
No, it's a lot more than working hard. Being a go-getter is about personal initiative. And personal initiative is being a person who goes and makes things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And personal initiative is one of the 4 pillars. So we talk discipline, confidence, mental toughness is the third one. Personal initiative is the fourth when it comes to the mindset piece of all of this. And personal initiative is what stirs the drink. It makes things go because discipline, confidence, mental toughness are mindsets. They're ways of thinking. Personal initiative is about behavior. It's about action, taking this potential energy and making it kinetic energy, energy in motion. And the challenge for a lot of people is that they have a lot of ideas, a lot of things they want to do, a lot of things they think about doing, theorize and plan, but they never actually do it. They never actually start. And being willing to start gives you that first mover's advantage. It creates momentum. Momentum works off of itself once you start going, and you get activity knowledge. Because even if you take initiative and you're wrong, you get the activity knowledge of, okay, now I know what happens when I do this. As they say, Thomas Edison tried 10,000 different ways to create the incandescent light bulb before he found the one that worked. But had he never started, he never would have got the 10,000. I think I mentioned it in the book, there's a cleaning agent called Formula 409. A lot of people know about Formula 409. It's called that because the scientists who created it tried 409 different formulas before they found the one that worked. Most people don't try one formula that works. Most people, the number of times they will try an idea is between 0 and 1 time. Because most people will not try at all. That's the 0 weighing down the average. Then a bunch of people will try 1 time, not get it, and never try again. And there's a few people who will try more than once. And they're the ones who bring the number up a little bit. But there's so many who try 0 or 1 time that the number is between 0 and 1 time, the average number of times anybody tries anything. The saying is, if you're willing to ask 100 people for anything, it's guaranteed that you'll get it.
Do you know the spray called WD-40? So you know what does that mean? It means water displacement 40th attempt. So it was the 40th time they created that spray.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I would have put that in the book if I knew about it, but I like WD.
Makes sense. And people, like you said, people struggle to start because what I've seen with people or my friends, they struggle to start because they look for the perfect time. They look for the perfect opportunities. So what's your feedback on how can we just get started on where we are and what we have?
Figure it out as you go. A lot of people incorrectly think that they need to have, quote unquote, all the information or, quote unquote, the right time to begin. Well, first of all, it's never going to be the right time. And secondly, there's no such thing as having all the information. In the world that we live in today, Sid, new information is created faster than we can consume information. So it's impossible to have all the information because the information is too fast for you to process it. So there's more than you can take in. Secondly, the information that you will know when you've completed the mission is information that you could not have obtained by theorizing about the mission. There's information that you can only get through activity. We call that activity knowledge information. I couldn't explain to you how to go play professional basketball for a decade had I not actually done it. I could write a book about it, and someone else who didn't do it couldn't explain it at the level at which I could explain it because they didn't live it. You have to actually do it. So a lot of the knowledge or information, so to speak, that we need in order to achieve an outcome only comes to us when we are doing the thing and in the process. And part of the knowledge is the failures. Part of the knowledge that a young man gets and how to talk to a young woman is to approach girls and get turned down. Is
Yeah,
to go on dates and have it not work out. Like, you have to experience that. There's only so much theory you can take in before you have to actually go up to a girl and talk to her. That's part of the deal. And this is another reason why I mentioned the generation that we come from is the best generation. People born between about 1970 and 1990. Are you in that range?
2000.
You're born in 2000? Oh, you missed it. So you missed it. I'm sorry. And this range, 1970 to 1990, I'm sticking to it, Sid. Sorry. No offense. But in this range, we are old enough to where we got our formative years experience. We had to do things in real life with real people. There was no internet to default to. And at the same time, young enough that we could get on the internet when it came around. So our parents' generation was they were a little bit old for the internet. A lot of them never adjusted to the internet, even though they had the real life experience. And your generation, I'm not saying you personally, but a lot of people
Yeah.
born after 1990, they grew up with the internet. I mean, you grew up with the
Yeah.
internet.
Yes,
And
correct.
doesn't mean, again, not you personally necessarily, but a lot of people who grew up with that, they did a lot of their communication or do a lot of their communication through the internet, not in real life. We had to do it. We had to do it in real life. There was no other option. And then the internet is easy when you've done it in real life. But you've never done it in real life, then real life is hard if all you've done is sending DMs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And since you spoke about failure, right? So, how do you think go getters handle embarrassment, failures compared to others?
Well, it depends on how you frame it, because embarrassment is a state of mind. So embarrassment is not something that you can pin on another person. So if something happens if you and I are both walking down the street and you slip on some ice and fall, you could be embarrassed, right? If everybody across the street saw you. But I
Yeah,
could slip on some ice and fall and everybody saw me and I don't feel embarrassed. I just get up and keep walking. It doesn't affect me at all, because embarrassment is a way of thinking. It's not something that happens to you. So you cannot have embarrassment occur. Embarrassment is not an activity. It's not an outcome. It's a thought. So if you decide that you're not embarrassed, then you're not embarrassed. If someone else accuses you of being embarrassed, that's what they would feel if it happened to them. But that doesn't mean that you feel the same thing that they feel. You can't assign feelings to another person. And when it comes to failure, it's the same thing. It's like Thomas Edison. When he kept trying to make that light bulb after try number 5,000, the legend goes that his assistant was like, "Man, you tried all these times. How many times are you going to fail at this before you give up?" And he said, "I didn't fail. I just found another way that doesn't work, but I did find a way that I could maybe use this some other way." The whole point is you can reframe something not working as positive because it's moving you closer to the outcome. It just depends on your mental makeup and how you're conditioned. But there doesn't have to be failure if you don't call it failure. And there's no such thing as embarrassment if you decide you're not embarrassed.
makes sense. And and coming back to self-talk as well. So, what do you think? What kind of self-talk builds a go-getter mentality?
Great question. It's the mental conditioning is things that you say to yourself about yourself conditionally. I mean, not conditionally, consistently, that condition your subconscious mind to accept the belief. And here's the great thing about that, Sid, is that you can condition yourself with anything that you want. You can tell yourself anything you want. It doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be factual. It can be in whatever you want. If you tell yourself anything often enough, you will come to believe it, you will come to accept it, and you will work on it. You will act on that belief, even if it's complete nonsense, a complete lie. And it could be a lie pushing you forward. It could be a lie pulling you backward. Doesn't matter what it is. This is why environment matters so much. This is why associations matter so much. Who are you talking to? Who are you letting talk to you? What are you consuming? What are you looking at on your phone? What are you reading every day, if anything? These things are all conditioning you, even if you're not aware. This is the reason why you could have a song that comes on, you hear it all the time. You don't even like the song, but you start hearing it in your head just because you heard it so many times. Right? There are things that you don't even like, but they're stuck in your head because you keep hearing them over and over and over again. Things that our parents said to us that we still remember because they said it so often that you can't forget it. That is the subconscious mind, subconscious programming. So when it comes to the go-getter mindset, you tell yourself things like, let's say there's a person who's hesitant and they usually second guess and they procrastinate. They can say things to themselves like, I'm a person who, once I make a decision, I act on it immediately. I'm a person who every day I do at least 3 things that push me out of my comfort zone and force me to take initiative, even when I don't feel like doing it. I'm a person who, as soon as I see something that needs to be done, I immediately take an action that commits me to getting that thing done, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's inconvenient. I do it right there in the moment with no hesitation, no second thought. You tell yourself that every single day for a year. By the end of that year, you're going to be doing those things without even thinking about it. It becomes part of who you are as a person. And especially if you get positive results from it, you won't even have to keep saying it. You just do it without thinking.
Makes sense. And what's your self talk like?
Man, well, I can't tell you everything, but when it comes to my self talk, and here's a great question that you're asking. If you want to know my self talk, just watch what I do. Watch my behaviors. Listen to the way that I talk. Look at the way that I present myself. Look the way that I show myself online. The way I show myself offline. If anybody ever meets me offline, the way that I talk here in this conversation, the way that I'm showing myself, the language that I use. All of this is a reflection of my subconscious programming. And the reason why I'm using myself, because this is actually true about every human, actually, Sid, but reason why it's very true of myself because I'm aware of this and I know exactly what I'm doing it on purpose. I condition myself on purpose. Most people are conditioned by default, by whoever they happen to be around. And that could be good, bad, indifferent. We never know. It's random. But I've conditioned myself purposely. So everything I'm doing is purposely conditioned. And if I ever notice anything that I don't like, then I go to work fixing that conditioning. Like, wait a minute, there's something I'm doing here that is
Yeah.
habitual, but I don't like it. I need to fix that. And usually, as soon as I become aware of it, I can change it.
Tell me something that you fixed, for example, whether that's a business failure or a personal thing that really helped with the self talk.
10 years ago, I was giving a speech, and it was here in Miami. And a friend of mine was at the speech. And one of the things he said to me, he said, Dre, every time in between your statements, you kept licking your lips. You kept doing it in between every single statement. I didn't realize I was doing it, but I don't think he was lying. And I went back and looked at the video. I couldn't quite tell because the camera was too far away. But as soon as he said it, now he took something that clearly was an unconscious habit. Like, I wasn't doing it because there was anything wrong with my lips. It was an unconscious habit. And again, this is subconscious programming. You're not aware of most of the things that you're doing. But he pointed out to me, now I'm conscious of it. And usually when someone has an unconscious habit that they don't want to have, but you point it out, you can extinguish it just by noticing it. And as soon as he said it, I stopped doing it. Nobody's ever said that to me since. It was 10 years ago. Nobody said that to me since because I don't do it anymore. Because he made it conscious to me, I became aware of it. Okay, now I'm not going to keep doing that. But most of the time, we have habits. Nobody points out the habit. And or if you're a person who doesn't care and you're not interested in tightening up in any way, then you may keep the habit even if the habit is not serving you because you're not growth focused, forward focused type of person. But I would guess me, you, anybody listening to the show is focused on growth. Otherwise, they wouldn't be listening to the show. So if you hear something like that, that can be fixed, you take that, appreciate it, and then you go to work on it.
Makes sense. And any future speeches that you did after that, did you remind yourself, like, okay, I don't need to do that? And eventually it just got second nature and just automatically doing it unconsciously, flawlessly.
No, because as soon as he said it, I stopped doing it. So as soon as he said it, I
Okay.
became conscious of it because I didn't want to be doing it in the first place. I didn't even realize I was
Yeah.
doing it because again, there was nothing wrong with my lips. So I don't know why I was doing it. And again, I was just
Okay.
taking his word for it. I'm assuming he was telling me the truth.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Clear. And and how does and give me an example of how did being a go-getter help you in your life or business? Like, maybe a recent one that you can share, which is not in the book.
No, man, I can give you a million. How do we end up having this conversation? I mean, my entire professional career from, let me see, from high school, it was continue practicing to get good at basketball. Then college, I was going to college either way, and I walked on to play basketball. But let's just say from college on, every single thing I've achieved, Sid, was because I took initiative. I didn't have an in. I grew up in a 2-parent household, but neither of my parents is an athlete. They don't know anybody in the sports world to put me on. Neither of my parents was a full-time entrepreneur, not in the way that I am. Neither of them know anything about the internet or computers. Neither of my parents could even explain to you what exactly it is I do for a living, honestly, even to this day. So everything that I did, the books that I've written, the TED Talks that I've done, the media appearances that I've had, the business connections that I made, all were because 7% of the things that I've done professionally from college till now, and I graduated college in 2004, 97% of them, I initiated the interaction. 3%, somebody called me. The other 97%, I called them.
Makes sense. And just to go back on the point on how we are talking right now for our listeners, like Dre sent me a video literally of the podcast research that he's done about me and why he wants to come be a guest and about his experience. And when I saw that video, I was like, oh, wow, that's someone that's taken the effort and gone the extra mile to do that. And that clearly shows a go-getter mentality.
Yes, thank you. And it's something that for me, I've always known that if you have the skill, if nobody's knocking on your door, you have to knock on some doors. And if nobody's ringing your phone, you got to go ring some phones. And if nobody's coming to you, a lot of people have this mentality said that if no one's coming to you offering opportunities, that must mean that maybe you're just not that good, or is the marketplace telling you that this is how they see you, that whatever comes to you, that's a reflection of how good you are or how good you're not. And then they look on TV back in the day and now on the internet, and they say, well, look at this person. They have all these people knocking on their door. So clearly they're at that level where everybody's coming to them. So if I ever get to the level where people are coming to me, that means I'm getting better. So they'll sit there and wait for somebody to come knock on their door. That's not the way it actually works. And nobody knows who you are, but you think you're good enough to be known. It's your job to interrupt them and let them know, hey, I know you're paying attention to that over there, but you should notice this over here. And that this is you and your thing and your idea and who you are as a person. And that requires a certain level of, goes right back to that word, confidence. You have to have belief in whatever you're offering, that you're willing to put it in front of somebody who didn't ask you to do it, wasn't looking for you, and say, excuse me, said, hey, I have something that I think would be useful for your audience. Take a look at this. Listen to what I have to say. And there's no guarantee you would have said yes. You could have said no. I'm not interested in this guy. I would have said, okay, great. Let's move on to the next one. But you have to have the confidence to do that and put yourself out there and accept that some people will say yes and some people will say no. That's the salesperson in me.
And then what's the how would you say like a healthy balance between being a go-getter and someone coming across as needy or quite pushy?
That's a great question. And it's all about your energy. Let's go right back to that term we started with. It's about how you present yourself. So you can, let's say you're at the grocery store and you see a girl you're interested in. There's a way to approach her where you feel needy. There's a way to approach her where you show her that you're interested, but you're not chasing her. And those are two different energies. One energy, let's say she thinks you're cute, because a girl can think that a guy is cute, but still turn him down based on his energy, right? And a girl could think a guy is not that attractive, but based on his energy, she can still give him her phone number, just the way that he communicates. And that's all about how you show up. And the energetic answer is this, because you're asking about needy and still making it known that you're interested in something, is that whatever you chase runs away from you. That's the way life works. And the example that I give is tell somebody, go outside on a sunny day and walk after your shadow. Try to catch up to your shadow walking. And what happens? The shadow walks away from you. If you walk faster, it walks faster. If you run, it starts running from you. Now, if you get tired and realize you're not going to catch your shadow, you turn around and go the other direction. What happens? Your shadow follows you. You start walking faster, it follows you faster. You start running, it chases you. When you carry yourself with the energy of, and what it really comes down to is the energy of abundance versus scarcity. And the energy of scarcity says, I don't have something, therefore I need it. And when you have that energy within you, it doesn't matter what you say. People feel the energy before you talk, or regardless of what you say. And when they feel that neediness, it pushes them away. The example I give, Sid, is that why does a homeless person or a beggar who stands on the street corner all day begging for money, when they literally, it's obvious they don't have any, they might scrounge up $5 over the course of the whole day, maybe 20 on a lucky day. Even though they ask every single person who walked by for $1, everybody who walked by has at least $1. If they all gave him $1, this guy would collect thousands every day. He gets maybe $20 all day. Why? It's because he carries the energy of being needy. And when you're needy, people want to get away from you because that energy is repellent. Needy energy is repellent. But now think about this. The rich guy who is known for being rich, known for having a whole lot of money, He goes to the most expensive restaurant in town and he doesn't have to pay for the food. They give it to him for free. Now, why is that? He clearly has the money. He can afford it. He can pay for it 10 times, but he doesn't pay for it. Why? Because he carries an energy of abundance. And when you carry an energy of abundance, everybody wants to give something to you. When you carry yourself as if you already have it, everybody wants to give you more of it, whatever it happens to be. When you carry yourself as if you don't have it, nobody wants to give it to you, even though you obviously need it. So it seems backwards, right? You would think the people who need it, they should get more, and the people who have it should give up more. And there's a joke in there about the way politicians work in America, and I'm not going to tell. But the whole point here is when you carry yourself as if you have something, then other people want to come towards you. You carry yourself as if you don't have it, other people want to get away. Now, here's the key. The mental alchemy here, Sid, is that even when you have absolutely nothing, you can't carry yourself like you have nothing because you're going to push people away. You have to carry yourself like you have something, even when in fact you have nothing, because it draws people to you. Like, oh, this person's carrying themselves like nobody says this consciously. People don't understand this consciously, but they feel the energy. The human beings feel energy before we feel words. We are pre-verbal creatures, but we don't act like it. Actually, we do act like it. We don't talk like it because, again, most people can't explain this, but everybody feels it. The only difference here is I'm explaining it. And if people can really understand this, then you'll understand why you're getting the results that you're getting in your life in general, with anyone you deal with your kids, with your family, with your business partners, with complete strangers. They read your energy more than anything that you say. Go somewhere and say nothing and notice how people respond to you. They're just responding to your energy, not your words.
That's so interesting. And in like 2025, other terms would be like nowadays they call it as aura, right? So energy
Yeah,
and aura.
that's right. It's the same thing.
Yeah, same thing, right?
Yes.
Sorry if you're repeating the same thing again, but I want to know more about energy, right? So let's say someone currently who doesn't have that positive or successful energy or the energy of abundance, what can they do from like simple basic steps to really build that energy up?
Sure. Ask yourself, let's put some flesh to this person. What are they doing in life and where are they trying to go? What kind of results do they want to have?
Let's say they are an intern, they are like in their early 20s and just starting their life out.
Okay. And what kind of industry they trying to get into?
They're just figuring out life, let's say.
Okay. 5 years from now, where do they want to be?
Let's say they want to grow their career within the corporate world.
Okay. So here's what I would have that person do. I would tell that person, I want you to write down on paper what you want your life or yourself to be 5 years from now. Just write it down. Everything you want to be true about you, whether that's how much money you're making, the people you know, how people feel about you, your reputation in the industry, what kind of job you have or business or career that you have, what is said about you by people when you're not around. What are the results that you want to have? Tangible results that we can look at and say, yes, that's there, that's there, that's there. Write all those down. Then next thing you're going to do is write down all the things that that person will be doing 5 years from now. How are they living? How are they operating? Who's calling on them? Who needs them? Where is their attention most valuable? What spaces are they welcome in? What spaces do people miss them when they're not there? Where are they? Where are you at and what are you doing? What actions are you taking on a consistent basis? You're in this place, you're part of this club, you're in this group, you're on this board of directors, whatever it is, you're running this company, you have this position in this business, whatever it is, the things you're actively doing, write those down. Then the third thing is looking at what you wrote in the first two lists, what you're going to have and what you're going to be doing. What type of person would that person need to be? I want you to describe energetically, aura wise, energy wise, presence wise. What type of person would this person need to be in order for those things to be true that you already wrote down? How would they need to be? What kind of confidence do they have? How do they carry themselves? How do they walk? How do they talk? What's their body language like? How is their eye contact with other people? What type of feeling do other people get when you walk in a room? How do people feel when you just walk by, don't say anything to them, but they look at you? What do you want them to be thinking and not saying about you just by looking at you? And you just walk by for 10 seconds. Write all those things down, those energies. Now, with all those things written down, Sid, I'm going to say to that person every single day for the next 5 years, when you start your day, first thing you do in the day, before you check email, text messages, or social media, I want you to read those things to yourself every day. Read them out loud to yourself. Nobody else needs to see this. This is just for you. Read them out loud to yourself every day. It should take you maybe 10 minutes. Then at the end of the night, before you go to bed, read them out loud to yourself again. Do this in the bathroom privately to yourself. Why at the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes? Because the first 10 minutes of your day, your subconscious mind is not cluttered with noise. You haven't checked an email yet, a text message. There's nothing in your brain. Your brain's been on standby for 8 hours when you were sleeping. So it's wide open to whatever you share to start the day. There's a reason why we don't watch scary movies at the beginning of the day. Your brain is wide open. So you start with that. And there's also a reason why people should not start their day with social media, because you have no idea what's going to be there. You start with this. This is programming of the subconscious. Why the last 10 minutes of the night? Because right before you fall asleep, the last thing you take in is what your subconscious mind is marinating on while you're sleeping. This is the reason why it's not a good idea to watch the evening news before you go to bed, because usually the news is telling you something that's supposed to make you alarmed, shocked, scared, afraid. It's the reason why if kids watch scary movies before they go to sleep, they wake up with nightmares, because their subconscious mind is working on that. It's the reason why you hear partners say, you don't argue with your spouse before you go to bed, because you don't want to be marinating on the negative energy of that argument and then go to sleep. That's not a good thing, because you're baking that into the subconscious mind. So the first 10 minutes, last 10 minutes every day, read that out loud to yourself. And what's going to happen is this is repetition. And this is also immersion, because you're immersing your mind in these thoughts and allowing it to bake while you're sleeping, or it's starting your day. It's like you're coating your mind with this to begin the day. And is also usually, if there are things that you really want, there's some emotional connection to it. The 3 ways you program the subconscious mind: repetition is doing it every day; immersion, you're coating your mind with these thoughts to start your day and before you go to sleep; and emotionalization, that's assuming that these are things that you really want. Those are the 3 ways you program the subconscious. And mind you, only one of these can do the job. If you have all 3, that's the magic formula. You do that every day for a year, you will start to fundamentally change the way you carry yourself, the way you walk, you talk, your energy. Your character will begin to change. And people will begin to respond to you differently. It won't take a year. People start responding to you differently in about 2 weeks. And you would notice this difference. And I coach people on this kind of stuff, so I've seen this. You will start to carry yourself differently and get different results from the world because of the way your energy is speaking. Now, here's the thing. Most people are saying, okay, that sounds good, but what about the actions? Well, here's the piece. When you change the way you are being and you change your internal wiring, the actions must automatically change. Because if I say I'm going to carry myself like a leader, I'm going to carry myself like a CEO, like a person who runs a Fortune 500 company, well, I'm going to walk a little bit taller. I'm going to be a little bit more straightened up. I'm going to make sure my hair is combed every day. I'm going to maybe change my wardrobe a bit. I'm going to make sure my shoes are shined, because I decided this is the type of person I need to be. Well, what does a CEO look like? How's a CEO carry himself? What kind of energy does he have? You don't see him walking around with slumped shoulders. He's not looking at his phone while he's walking down the street. He doesn't do that. So you can't do it, because this is the energy that you're looking to have. And if you can't answer these questions, sometimes people have trouble answering these questions for themselves. Okay, then pick an archetype. Who's somebody out there who represents what you want in what areas? Look at them, and what pieces of them do you want to bring into yourself? You write all that stuff down and you keep telling it to yourself every day. Eventually the subconscious mind, you knock on the door of the subconscious mind often enough, it eventually opens the door and it lets that thought in. That's the way it works. That's the repetition part. This is why you can't hear something one time and think it's going to change you. Most of the time, that's not enough. You hear something over and over and over again every day, eventually it becomes part of you. You don't even have to try. It just becomes part of you because you heard it so many times. The subconscious says, okay, I guess you're going to keep telling me this. I guess this matters to you. And that doesn't matter what it is. It can be positive or negative. If you keep saying it, you will come to accept it. So that's the way a person can change themselves.
Thank you. I think that's going to be so powerful for the listeners if they apply it. But just another question. If you say like 5 years, right? Life is so like unpredictable, right? So does 5 years work, or like 1 year work, like 6 months? Why 5 years?
I'm saying 5 years because I'm expecting somebody who wants to play the long game. The long game of where you want to be in 5 years. Because in 5 years, notice I'm not saying the vehicle that you had to take to get there. We're just talking about the outcome. Life will figure out the vehicle, because you don't always know how things are going to go. I told you I graduated college in 2004. Social media didn't come out till like 2006, 2007. I had no idea that was going to be an opportunity for me, but I knew once I saw the internet, which was there, that it was a place for me. I knew there was something I was going to be doing on the internet where I could express myself, and other people who I never met in person could benefit from it. When I saw what the internet was in 2002, I knew that was going to be a thing. I didn't know where it was going to go. I'm not a tech guy. I told you I'm a computer geek. I'm not a tech guy. I'm not a coder. I'm a surface level user. Pretty good at it, but surface level. I don't design stuff. But I knew I was going to go somewhere with that. I had that thought and that vision in my head the entire time. So when YouTube came around, it was perfect. I knew it was for me. Social media came, I knew it was for me. When self-publishing came, I knew it was for me. When podcasting came, I knew it was for me. I saw that before it existed. Not that I could have created it. I saw that there was going to be a space where people could put their own message out there in their own way, direct to consumer. And people like me were going to take advantage of that. So the vehicle was all this stuff that we have now. Riverside didn't exist in 2004. Right? The vehicle is this stuff. The vehicle has come around. The
Yeah.
vision comes from the beginning. The vision is the seed. The vehicle just comes around once the tree starts growing. Does that make sense?
Super clear with that analogy. Super clear, makes sense. So final question, Dre, before we wrap up. And this is a question that I started asking all of my guests. The question is, what interpersonal skills stands out in the most successful people you have met?
What interpersonal skill stands out for the most successful people? Number one, communication. Number one is communication skill. And here's the thing about communication. Most people, when they hear communication, they're thinking the ability to get on a microphone, a stage, or a camera lens, or in front of a room and talk. That is part of it. And you should be able to do that. Those communication skills are universal. They're future proof and they are transferable through any industry. But here's the other thing about communication. There are two other pieces most people forget. Number two is that half of communication is not what you put out, is what you take in. Your ability to listen, to consume, to observe, and to pick up on not only what people say, but how they say it and also what they don't say. That's a huge part of communication. And if you're going to be persuasive, influential, or you're going to sell in any way, you must be good at picking up communication, not giving out communication. I tell salespeople all the time, most salespeople talk too damn much. Most sales is listening, not talking. If you're good at listening, you'll sell more than if you're good at talking. Good talkers are not salespeople. Good listeners are salespeople. Successful salespeople. And the other piece about communication is that most communication, 85%, is non-verbal. It is not what you say. It's how you say it and the energy around it. So when I say communication, it's not just talking, it's consuming, and it's the non-verbals. That's number one piece I would say with successful people.
Super clear. Thank you so much, Dre. It was an absolute honor to have you on the show. And you have shared so many golden nuggets with our listeners. It's going to be really helpful. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated, Sid. Thank you for sharing your platform and for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And thank you to all of our listeners as well. I'll link Dre's all social media handles in the show notes. Plus, you definitely buy the book because I've read it three to four times and it has already helped me in my life. So thank you. Thank you, Dre, once again. Thank you to your listeners.